In this video game of theories, I'll introduce contingency theory. It is a theory within organizational theory that argues that the best organizational structure and management practices depend on the specific context and environment of the organization. I need to offer a clarification of organizational theory here. I often hear students say the theoretical framework of my research is organizational theory. To me, that answer doesn't mean anything. It is possible the students haven't had a clear understanding of theoretical framework or organizational theory. They just put different jargon into one sentence, which doesn't mean anything. Although there is a word theory in the phrase organizational theory, organizational theory is not a single theory. Instead, organizational theory is a field of study that encompasses multiple theories and perspectives that provide a comprehensive and holistic understanding of organizations and their role in society. Within organizational theory, there are several different schools of thought and perspectives, each with their own set of assumptions, constructs, and methods. Contingency theory is one theory within organizational theory that argues that there is no best way to organize a corporation, to lead a company, or to make decisions. Instead, the optimal course of action is contingent or dependent upon the internal and external situation. Other theories within organizational theory include: first, classical management theory, which focuses on the efficiency and rationality of organizations. Human relations theory, which emphasizes the importance of employee motivation and job satisfaction. Systems theory, which views organization as complex systems made up of interrelated parts. Cultural history theory, which looks at the way culture and history shape organization. Institutional theory. I've introduced this theory in the previous video. It is a theory that explains why organizations in the same field become the same over time. Resource-based theory, which emphasizes the role of resources and capabilities in shaping organizational performance. 7. Network theory, which examines how organizations interact and form networks. And 8. Complex adaptive systems theory, which looks at how organizations adapt and evolve in response to changing environments. Each of these theories within organizational theory has its own set of assumptions, constructs, and methods to study different aspects of organizational behavior and performance. Let's come back to contingency theory. It was developed in the 1960s to challenge the classical management theory, which was proposed in the 1910s. In 1991, Frederick Taylor published a book titled The Principles of Scientific Management. In the book, Taylor focused on efficiency and rationality of organizations by using scientific principles. To improve efficiency of work processes and achieve optimal organizational performance, manager can break down tasks into smaller, simpler components and study them individually to identify the most sufficient ways to perform the tasks. In 1922, Max Weber published a book titled Economy and Society. In his book, Weber presented his argument on how bureaucracy could be used as a rational and efficient way to organize and manage large organizations. According to Weber, bureaucratic organizations were characterized by a clear hierarchy of authority, a formalized system of rules and procedures, and the use of experts to perform specialized tasks. Bureaucracy could be the best way to achieve efficiency in large organizations because it would allow for the separation of decision-making and execution, allowing for specialized individuals to focus on specific tasks and make decisions based on their expertise. This will lead to a more rational and efficient decision-making process, as well as the ability to scale and manage large numbers of employees and activities. Weber also argued that bureaucracy could also be the best way to ensure predictability and consistency in organizational management. This is because a clear hierarchy of authority and a formalized system of rules and procedures would allow bureaucratic organizations to make same decisions in similar situations, and that employees are treated fairly and consistently. Moreover, Weber argued that bureaucracy would be the best way to ensure accountability and transparency, because decision-making and execution could be separated, and the decision would have clear lines of authority, making it easy to identify and hold individuals accountable for their actions. Fast forward to the 1950s, when a group of researchers tried to identify effective leadership behavior. Using surveys, the researchers identified two types of effective leadership behavior. First, relation-oriented behavior, which refer to leader behaviors that focused on building rapport and interpersonal relationships and showing support and concern for subordinates. The second type of effective leadership behavior is task-oriented behavior, which refer to leader behaviors that focused on building structure, such as role assignment, planning, and scheduling to ensure task completion and goal attainment. Effective leaders are those who scored high on both types of behaviors. With these understandings, researchers suggest that Taylor's scientific management and Weber's bureaucracy, which emphasized the standardized process, had failed to consider environment and other factors that could influence management style and organizational structure. Those factors were called contingency factors. Contingency theory argues that the best organizational structure and leadership practices depend on the specific context and environment of the organization. There could not be one best way for leadership or organization. Different group situations call for different leadership styles. Since leaders have a relatively fixed leadership style that can be either task-oriented or relationship-oriented, an organization must design job situations to match a leader's traits in order to achieve group effectiveness. Contingency theory highlights the importance of selecting leaders based on group goals and dynamics. One prominent scholar on contingency theory is Fred Edward Fiedler, who was born in Vienna, Austria. Due to his family's Jewish heritage, he and his family fled Austria in 1937 and settled in South Bend, Indiana. Fiedler served for the U.S. Army during World War II. After the war, he earned his doctorate in psychology from University of Chicago in 1949. Fiedler described 3 steps to achieve effective leadership and group effectiveness. First, assess a leader's leadership style. Second, assess the degree to which the situation gives the leader power, control, and influence over the situation. And third, match the situation with the leader's leadership style. To assess a leader's leadership style, Fiedler developed a metric called the least preferred coworker. Using the least preferred coworker scale, we asked leaders to think of a coworker they had the most difficulty to work with. We then asked leaders to rate their least preferred coworker on a scale of 1 to 8 on a set of bipolar adjectives. For example, the leader could select a value between 1 for boring and 8 for interesting, and between 8 for supportive and 1 for hostile. After the full scale is completed, we then total the values to a least preferred coworker score. If the score is 73 or above, the leader is considered a relationship-oriented leader. Relationship-oriented leaders are concerned with establishing good interpersonal relationships and get along with one another. They derive satisfaction from successful interpersonal relationships and enjoy being in groups regardless of task success. If the score is 64 or below, the leader is considered a task-oriented one. They're more concerned with achieving a goal than establishing good interpersonal relationships. They punish coworkers who perform poorly. They derive satisfaction from being in a group that performs well. If the score is between 65 and 72, then the leader's leadership style is somewhere between the relationship-oriented or task-oriented. After identifying leader's leadership style, the second step to achieve effective leadership and group effectiveness is to assess the degree to which the situation gives the leader power, control, and influence over the situation. To do so, we focus on 3 variables. First, leader's position power. It means the potential power which the organization provides for the leader's use. A leader has a powerful position means the leader has a high level of authority. If the leader has a high level of position power, they'll be more effective if they use a more autocratic leadership style. Whereas if the leader has a low level of position power, they'll be more effective if they use a more democratic leadership style. Second, task structure. It includes decision verifiability, that is, the degree to which the correctness of the solution or decision can be demonstrated. Second, goal clarity, that is, the degree to which the requirements of the task are clearly stated or known. Third, goal path multiplicity, that is, the degree to which the task can be solved by a variety of procedures. And fourth, solution specificity, that is, the degree to which there is more than one correct solution. If the task is highly structured and clear, a leader who is more directive will be more effective, whereas if the task is less structured and ambiguous, a leader who is more participative will be more effective. The third variable of situation assessment is interpersonal relationship between the leader and group members. It includes, first, leaders' affective relations with group members. Second, leaders' ability to obtain acceptance. And third, leaders' ability to engender loyalty. A good leader-member relationship means that the leader is generally accepted and respected by followers. If leader-member relationships are good, a leader who is more democratic and participative will be more effective. In contrast, if leader-member relations are poor, a leader who is more autocratic and directive will be more effective. Based on these variables, we can have 5 types of group situations. They include, first, informal groups with structured tasks. Second, groups with structured tasks and powerful leader positions. Third, group with organizations in which leadership is distributed over at least 2 levels of management. Fourth, creative groups with unstructured tasks and weak leader position power. And fifth, groups with unstructured tasks and powerful leaders. The third step to achieve effective leadership and group effectiveness is to match the group situation with the leader's leadership style. For example, when informal groups have structured tasks and the relationship between the leader and members is good, then selecting a leader who has task-oriented leadership style is instrumental for group effectiveness. An example of the second group situation is a football team, which has a structured task, a powerful coach, and good leader-member relations. Here, you should select a task-oriented coach to set the game plan rather than a relationship-oriented coach. But if the leader-member relation is poor and dysfunctional, you should select a relationship-oriented leader who focuses on establishing good interpersonal relationships. When creative groups had unstructured tasks, a leader is not given much position power by an organization, and the relationship between leader and members is good, then selecting a leader with relationship-oriented style is instrumental for group effectiveness. An example is a design firm in which leader-member relations are good. You should select a relationship-oriented leader who can get creative minds to work together rather than a task-oriented leader trying to impose opinions and decisions on the group. An example of the fourth group situation is a team in an emergency situation with an unstructured task, a powerful leader, and good leader-member relations. In this case, a task-oriented leader can make decisions fast so that they can execute those decisions. This is a better approach to achieve group effectiveness than having a relationship-oriented leader who would waste precious time discussing options with the group. As stated in Fiedler's book about the old army adage, it is better in an emergency that the leader makes a wrong decision than no decision at all. There are 4 group situations in the table. One group situation is missing. This is groups with organizations in which leadership is distributed over at least 2 levels of management. In this group situation, when groups had high position power and structured tasks, or low position power and unstructured tasks, task-oriented leadership is effective when leader-member relations were either good or poor, whereas relationship-oriented leadership was effective with moderate leader-member relations. In summary, the effectiveness of a leader depends on the specific characteristics of the situation, such as leader-member relations, task structure, and position power. The most effective leadership style will depend on the levels of these elements in the situation. When leader-member relations are moderate, a relationship-oriented leader is best suited. This is because member relations are in flux and can therefore be positively influenced by the more considerate and personable relationship-oriented leader. When leader-member relations are either poor or strong, a task-oriented leader is best situated. This is due to the task-oriented leader's objectivity, organization, and decisiveness. There are some limitations of contingency theory. First, it assumes that leaders' leadership style remains unchanged. Fiedler considered leaders are either relationship-oriented or task-oriented. This is a static view of leadership. Is it possible that a leader can be both relationship-oriented and task-oriented? What happens if a leader's style falls between the 2 types? Contingency theory doesn't provide any explanation. The second limitation is that the least preferred coworker scale is based on subjective assessment. Its assessment may be inaccurate. Here is an example of a study that used longitudinal research design to test contingency theory in the hypothesized relationship between a task technology's non-routineness and information processing needs and predict project performance. The results suggest the need for further development of contingency theory to capture the longitudinal effects of contingency relationships on unit performance. Contingency theory has been further developed in management and administrative science. For example, researchers have developed contingency theory of organizational control, contingency theory of organizational change, and contingency theory of business strategy. After learning contingency theory, how do you apply it to your leadership practices? Does contingency theory apply to all organizations? How to critique contingency theory? How to refine or refute contingency theory? How can you make a theoretical contribution to contingency theory?
If you want to know more about how to build a theoretical framework for your research, I have published a book titled Demystify Theories, a workbook for developing theoretical frameworks of educational leadership research. The link of the book is in the description below.